Hello, welcome. I'm
Hi,
Stephen Neff. Uh, we've
nice to
got
meet you.
we've got Joe here as well. And who are you?
I'm Sarah Wintle.
All right. So you are a Delaware camera alum. When did you work at the store?
I think I started in 2014, maybe 20. No, actually, I think it was earlier than that. Maybe no, it was 2012, and then I think I left around 2015.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe that long.
You. So first of all, tell me about what you're doing now. You're a wedding photographer?
Yes, so primarily I am a wedding photographer here in Buffalo. Sometimes, I am originally from the Utica area, so sometimes I'll go back and do weddings there, but for the most part, I stay pretty local. But primarily weddings, and then kind of peppered in. I do some interior design shoots, Airbnbs, and then you've got your little shoots like families, engagement sessions, portrait sessions, things like that.
Okay. Awesome. How long have you been like that's full time for you at this point? How long have you been doing that full time?
Full time, I'd say probably around like 2016. I started off as a second shooter in college, and I was kind of just doing it to make money on the weekends. Low commitment, one day you give your images away and then you're all done. And then after doing that for a while, I was like, well, I see how much money I can, make doing it on my own. And, I just finally got used to doing it myself and learning the ins and outs of wedding photography. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to jump in and do this myself, and it's been great ever since.
Awesome. All right. So then let's back up. What's the first what's your first memory of having a camera, holding a camera? Was it somebody's? What camera was it? Do you remember?
So I don't know the exact model, but it was like a Kodak point and shoot or no, that's Canon. I honestly don't know the model, but it was like one of those really crappy bulky plastic point and shoots. And probably around 15 or 16, I was kind of toying around with it, doing my own photography, throwing a sepia, uh, filter on it, thinking I was doing some really interesting work. And looking back at it now, it was pretty awful.
Huh?
But then in high school, me and my mom, we took a film class together at Munson Williams in Utica.
Okay.
And so we would just go out driving on the weekends and in the country and kind of just like find interesting things to shoot together. And from there, it just like kind of sparked, I think, my love of photography. I've always been a visual person. I just don't think I knew it at first.
Mm-hmm.
So you started with film?
So
We
yeah, so
started with
that's my question there is I don't want to date you, but so you say it was a chunky Kodak point and shoot. Was it a film point and shoot or was it a digital point and shoot?
So initially, the 14 and 16 years, it was a digital point and shoot. But then when me and my mom, were going out and shooting, we were shooting 35 millimeter film.
So that's really interesting that you like your first experience was digital, but certainly in the early day, like in those early Kodak DCS digital days, but you went back to film because that was an interesting time. And that's sort of Joe and I were just talking about those early DSLR cameras that were expensive and unattainable. So in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, film still had relevance for somebody who's looking for higher quality to get more into it. Not that film isn't now, but
Yeah, I
yeah.
think so. My love of photography, I think it stems from I as a child and an early teenager, I always loved going through all of my parents' like photos that they took of us growing up. And like I'm sure a lot of people when they're looking through their pictures, they're just like little snapshots. But my mom, she was like, you could tell that she had an idea of like framing and composition, although she wasn't schooled. um these pictures are really beautiful, and I'm probably biased because I'm in most of them, but um but I loved like looking through these, and I've always had this like really strong connection to like nostalgia and being able to look back at memories and things like that. So I think that's where it stemmed. And then when we moved into film together, I was like, it just has this feel that I'm used to seeing.
Do you find yourself shooting film?
Professionally, no, but in my own time, I maybe not as much in the past 2 years. Life's been a little crazy, but I do, for the most part, like if I'm going home to see like family and things like that, I always bring my film camera along, mainly because it's still a tradition. Me and my mom like to go out and shoot together, whenever we can. And then like personally, like I just like to try and keep it on myself, when I'm hanging out with friends or if I'm driving around the city and I find something that, that's interesting. So I'm definitely still like a big proponent of film. I don't use it as much as maybe I used to, but I've been trying to kick myself back into doing it.
Instant, do you do any like Fuji Instax or Polaroid original stuff?
Yeah, I have a Fuji Instax. I used to bring it along a lot more, like to parties and stuff, groups, gatherings with friends. I haven't so much recently. The film's just kind of expensive. But I do have, which really saddened me. What is it? The Fuji's, oh God, 100C film that went out of business. I have this, like, yeah, I've got this beautiful old Polaroid that I was like so excited to use for, and I've had it for like 8 years, but now I only have like one packet of film left. And I'm like, well, it has to be something really special to like waste it on. So
Yeah.
I do a lot of instant film.
Yeah. I'm similar. I have a Lomo Instant, and I, again, try and force myself and say, all right, I'm going to use it. And then I just don't shoot with it.
I think it's great for a lot. What, Joe?
You gotta bring it to the bars with some roses. $20 a pop.
I think it's really great for people who don't necessarily want to like splurge a lot into like equipment and things like that, and they just want to have it for fun. So I think it's great, definitely, to like have on hand if you're at a gathering and things like that. And every time I hand one to somebody, they're like, "This still exists?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it does." So I definitely, and there are like a few weddings where I've brought either a medium format or an Instax there, and it's people that I've known that would like appreciate it. I won't say that all my couples probably would. I think it's definitely like a personal preference, and if you're connected to a photo in that way, but
Awesome. All right, so we talked about the Kodak digital point and shoot, and then you started film class. What was your beginner film camera?
I think it was like a Nikon N65. So it was automatic. It wasn't fully manual. So I started off there and used that for a while. I don't think I got another film camera until I started working at Delaware Camera, and then I picked up a Nikon F3, which I've been bumming around with.
Beautiful. Yeah, F3 was definitely on my list of like, okay, what pieces of art camera, but piece of art in its utility, how much of a beast it is. That's on my list. So respect on that.
It's been trusty. I think I probably needed a new lens. Something is funky is happening there, but I gotta look further into that.
All right, so you don't shoot film for your weddings. What do you shoot for your weddings, and what was your progression into digital that way?
So I started with at least for weddings, I started with a Nikon D800, which just like balls to the wall immediately. And I like bought like used lenses because I didn't have the finances to like buy everything out new. So I had my 70 to 200, my 24 to 70, and then of course you got your like 50 prime, and that's what I used for a long time. And then just recently, probably about a year and a half ago, I acquired a Nikon D810. So I've got that as well as my D800 still working as my backup. I've picked up a few lenses here and there, but for the most part, it's kind of stayed the same. I still got my 70 to 200, my 50, which I really don't use that often. Um, I was a little like dependent on my 24 to 70 for a long time. And then I recently, within the last year, got the 85 and I like can't get it off my camera.
So where you were leading there, I was going to ask, is shooting more zoom or more prime? So it sounds like you've shifted a little bit more towards prime with the
I did.
85, but
Yeah, I've shifted more towards the prime, and I'll have to say there's probably a few reasons for it. While I like, you know, the range of the zoom and how easy it is, because I'm not a person, I don't carry two bodies on me at all times. I think it's clunky. I'm just a small human being too. They hit each other. I'm like knocking into tables. I don't trust myself. So I don't have like double bodies on me. So I forgot where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
so shooting with a prime.
Yes, yes. So while I love the versatility of the 24 to 70, I do find myself using the 85 more. And I think it's, you know, not, it might have to do with my 24 to 70 is kind of old. So it's not as sharp as it used to be, probably needs to be calibrated. Um, the 85, since it's new, it's just crisp, it's reliable, it's fast. And it just creates really beautiful pictures. So I've been learning how to keep that on more as opposed to having to switch out.
Awesome. So right now we say so D800, D810. Do you have any gear lust? Looking at mirrorless, looking at the D850, or talk about balls to the walls, D6.
Yeah, I'll admit right here, I'm not a huge gearhead. If something's working for me, I'm like, okay, this is good. I'm frugal in like all aspects of my life. So unless like something literally just dies on me, I'm probably, or that it's just so out of touch with, you know, new technology, I'm probably not replacing it until I have to. I was like 2 years ago when I think the Sony A9 came out. I was looking into that because everyone was ranting and raving about just the quality and how great it was in the light and the shutter being silent and all that stuff. So I looked into it, but the cost that it would have cost me to totally switch over to Sony was just something I wasn't prepared for.
Yeah, no, that certainly going the Sony direction. There's lots of options, but compromises. So you need to think about the whole transition, not just, oh, that's a sweet body and there's great lenses, and
Exactly.
yeah, it's
I mean,
a
'cause
big.
it screws up your whole gear bag. What camera did Vicente get? What Fuji was it?
He got the X Pro 3.
Okay.
So it's the rangefinder style of the XT3 and now XT4.
Okay.
Yeah.
He brought it over the other day. I didn't get to play with it because it got into Ben's hands and then it never left. So yeah, I will admit, like, I'm very low on the gear envy, mainly because I don't even expose myself to it. So I can't want what I don't know is there.
I will admit that is probably the better point of view, and I am envious that you're able to do that. I am not.
It probably bites me in the ass a few times,
but if it works, right?
I'm feeling like a low maintenance photographer.
Well, Joe, like, so before you jumped on, Joe and I were talking about he's looking for pictures from 2005 that he shot with the D100, and we were saying like the D100 was a great camera as long as you hit your exposure and you didn't need a massive print. It was a great camera. It got some great images out of it. So yeah, that's an 18-year-old camera at this point, and just because there's new stuff out does not mean it takes any worse pictures.
Right. And I think that was I can't remember who imparted this wisdom on me, but I remember just being taught that it was really always the lens that you need to focus on as opposed to the body. So that's kind of always been my mindset, and I've upgraded as I needed to, but I'm always like, I'd rather invest in lenses. They hold their value better, as opposed to just upgrading the new body, over and over and over again, because essentially, for the most part, they're doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's another interesting transition from film to digital. Whereas film bodies, the image quality was never affected, right? Like it doesn't matter if you're shooting with a Nikon F or with a Nikon F6. The image quality, like the potential image quality that you're gonna get, doesn't matter, right? Those are two cameras that are 60, 70 years apart. The image quality depends on the lens
Right.
and the film stock that you're using. There are many other features and many other things that make it easier to get a better picture, but the ultimate best possible quality is the same. Whereas with digital, there is a progressive
Of course, yeah.
progressive change from body to body. But at this point, yeah, I remember when the D800 came out and looking at it and thinking like, all right, that's it. There's nothing. There's not, like, what else can you do? And as far as resolution goes, we haven't seen much
Right.
else beyond that.
It hasn't really topped out farther than that. And my D800 is a literal workhorse. I mean, it's still kicking, and I've had, knock on wood, I've had no problems with it whatsoever. It's like, I didn't even need to get the D810, but I was like, I might as well.
Professional photographer, wedding photographer, full time. What have the last 3.5 months looked like for you?
It's been bleak. Initially, I didn't have a ton of clients like coming to me about their 2020 dates, and if I did, it was like very sparingly. So I was like, okay, like this isn't so bad. And then obviously, as things have progressed, either all my weddings are moving to next year. I've had a few that canceled. People who are just pushing back later in this year in hopes that like we're still good. But like honestly, it's been tough. Trying to just keep track of when I'm available, these dates, like who's looking for what, like new clients for 2021, trying to fit them all in. And then, trying to make these like business decisions on, as hard as it's been on the brides, which I'm sure it's been absolutely just atrocious, because I can't imagine if I was trying to plan my own wedding and this happened. But from a business standpoint, we're dealing with these problems of where we're having to reschedule basically all of our 2020 dates to 2021. And of course, everyone wants a Saturday. But I think the thing that a lot of people aren't realizing is that there's only so many Saturdays in the year. So if I move all my dates from 2020 over to 2021, now I've got so limited amount of space for new clients in that year. Our income, we're basically living off of 1 year of income for 2 years. And it's really tough. So just trying to like juggle, like, do you charge a rescheduling fee, and like it feels unfair to the couple because it's not their fault, but at the same time it's not our fault either. It's been turmoil.
Yeah, no, I can I'm glad I'm not in that position, having hung up my professional photographer goals and aspirations many years ago, and I have a great deal of respect for the people that have said, no, this is what I want to do, I'm going to do it. So
yeah, it's tough, and you want to walk the line with empathy and understanding and as much flexibility as you can, which I try to do in all aspects of my business. But there also has to be an understanding that it is a business. So that's kind of the teeter-tottering that I've been trying
the tightrope you've been walking.
Yeah. And and then we want to like we want to get back into the swing of things. I want to start doing some sessions, and thankfully with phase 2 happening, I've got an engagement session tonight at 8. I'm going to have my mask on. I'm going to be 6 feet away. So, we're going to make it work.
All right.
Got a new studio too, right?
Yep, I did just get a studio in March, just in time for the pandemic. Thank God. I've been able to do so many cool things with it, like look at it, stare at it, unlock the door and then lock it again and leave.
Where is the studio?
The studio is 295 West Utica, so it's basically like a few doors down from Saigon Cafe. I share it with Lindsay Daddario. It's a cute little space. I'm really excited for when I actually can use it.
Awesome. So is your shoot tonight in the studio or?
No, it's actually down at Gallagher Pier, so right on the beach.
Awesome. 8 o'clock sounds like sunset.
Yeah, gonna get them golden hour pics.
Very cool. All right, we're gonna go back to gear really quick.
Sure.
What is one piece of gear, camera equipment that has changed the way you shoot the most?
That's a good question. Off camera lighting is always like scary at first because you're like, I don't know. There's so many different elements that you need to think about when you're, doing it. But I think at first off camera lighting was super scary to me. I didn't want to deal with it. It seemed like a hassle. And then, obviously I ended up buying some Alien B speed lights, and I bring those to receptions. And I'd say that has probably, and I don't want to say it's like changed my style or anything like that, but in the sense of the question that you're asking, like it's changed how I am able to like light certain situations. Whereas before, I think I was just like natural light only. And once I took the time to actually understand the relationship of light and everything that's happening between those, I'd say probably my strobes.
Awesome. So Alien Bees, do you know what model you've got?
I have 2 B800s.
Perfect. No, off-camera lighting is, especially when you get into monolights like that, where you do have so many different controls and so many different things. It's intimidating.
For sure.
But certainly now with digital, like with film, it's very intimidating because you have no idea.
Yet.
Yeah. With digital, you can play. You can sort of learn it. Yes, there's like you can go the textbook route and learn your learn how to match your exposures and everything. Or a lot of people and like you start to just shoot and take pictures and move the lights around and see how things look.
Yeah, it was definitely like a learning curve for me, but I'm glad that I figured it out.
All right, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us on our Delaware Camera Conversations. They're evolving. I think they're getting better every week, but
No, thanks for having me. This was fun.
So where can we find you? What are your website, social medias? How do people get in?
So you can find me at www.sarahwintle.com. That's Sarah with an H. And on Instagram, it is just Sarah A. Wintle. And lastly, Facebook is Sarah Wintle Photography.
Awesome. Sarah, again, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm excited to have actually met you now.
Yes, you too, or me too.